I think the fact that he is, again, not managing with some sense of ego and saying, like, let me just keep doing what I'm doing, regardless if it's not getting me the right result, which I think is what Steven Gerrard was doing. Mm-hmm. He's like, this is my belief. We're going to figure it out. And it never did. Meanwhile, Lampard is like, all right, this guy's not doing it. Let me try something else. Giving other people opportunities to see what works best. But he got all the new signings, benched all the old players from Doucouré is not not starting. Right. They transferred Alan away. I think they're willing to make changes, which is, I think, is the sign of a good modern manager nowadays.
And I think the problem with Steven Gerrard is every once in a while it's a big risk to. Every once in a while you'll see a manager sort of take a player and kind of do like almost like a Mourinho, but like not blame them, but think like, oh, okay, this is a bad example for the rest of the club, or this person isn't playing as hard as they should, or isn't training the way that I'm expecting. So you have a tough decision. Do you kind of scold them and separate them from the club, or kind of, chastise them for it? Or do you find a way to put your arm around them? Difficult, right? We talked a little bit about Cristiano Ronaldo. Clearly that's not working. We talked about, Aubameyang. That worked really well. It's risky, but it worked. Steven Gerrard, basically not benching Mings, but treating Mings like he may have been part of the problem.
Right.
That was the moment where it all fell apart for him.
I agree. I don't know. Look, I don't watch Villa week in and week out. I just see the results week in and week out, and it just seemed like clearly something was wrong. It's gotten to the point where, at the very least, they're like, look, the standards need to be a little bit higher. We're not trying to get relegated again. So look, you applaud clubs like that for making that decision even early on. Even though, again, I didn't get the sense that Villa fans loved him or anything like that. Like, as opposed to the public show of support for Frank Lampard, where Everton have had so many managers, and especially the one before Lampard was a disaster. So I think they're at a point where let's just like, look, he's treating me right now. Look, this is what I need right now.
I love him.
But I actually wanted to point this out real quick. I saw this on Reddit. This is a list of all. So now it's officially every Premier League club has used all 5 subs. A lot of teams didn't do this, so you can see now that so Everton and Leicester finally used their 5th sub this weekend, which is, I thought, a very interesting sort of sign, and I wonder what you think it kind of represents. That certain clubs wouldn't even use the 5th substitution. Do you think it's because they don't even trust that 5th player, or do you think it's poor management on their part? Because you were a big advocate, of the 5 subs.
Not as big an advocate of you switching to a spreadsheet. Mid-show. This is nerd chat.
It has nothing to do. Forget the spreadsheet. Focus on what I'm saying.
The fact that Everton looks like they just used their
Everton and Leicester finally used their first one.
Everton, Leicester, West Ham, and Bournemouth have only used the 5th sub once.
Correct.
I think it just goes to show squad depth. If you look at clubs like Brentford has used it the most, 9 times. Small ball, right? They go out and they find a bunch of mid-level price players that play above their pay grade, pay above with their cost. So they're going to have more players they have that they're able to use. If you look at a club like Everton, they probably don't have that squad depth. So I don't know if it's Lampard saying like, no, we don't need it, because there's a bunch of managers there going. There's a bunch of assistant coaches going like, hey man, come on. He's like, no, this is the 11 we came with. Blah blah blah. I don't trust number 4, number 5 as much. I could see that. I think the issue is as the 5th sub keeps getting more and more used, and we go a little bit further down in history of it, having a bit more understanding how to take advantage of having a 5th player that can come on, you'll see better and better players being brought in, and you'll see more and more academy kids being given those chances to come in.
I think it kind of suggests that there are certain clubs that tactically don't have, it's not even necessarily about depth, because they obviously have the number of players to, everybody has the same number of players on the roster to be able to make a substitution. But it suggests that there are certain managers that have tactics in place that not every player is sort of fit for. So you can't replace 5 players and still tactically play the same way. That's why the teams that have used it less, to me, that's what sort of implies.
Manchester City's pretty much middle of the ground there.
Manchester City, they've used this 6 times, but
that's median.
But that also kind of suggests
Arsenal's only used it 3 times. I mean, Arsenal has an issue with squad depth.
Okay.
Still.
I don't know, but I wonder if there's any correlation between the teams that have used it less and their results on the table. Everton, it's not a terrible. They're like what, in 11th place currently, or 12th. Bournemouth, where are Bournemouth at? Bournemouth are in 13th. So Leeds, Wolverhampton, and Nottingham Forest. Wolves. Where am I missing them?
Kirby D said, I almost screamed looking at that. I'm using Excel at work right now, and it seems I can never escape data sets.
I think it's an interesting thing to look at, especially given that.
I think at the end of the season, you'll probably have a better opportunity to suggest if this data has any strong correlation.
Sure.
Because if you look at a team like Crystal Palace, they've only used it twice, but they've used 3 subs a lot. So they make their way into the higher percentages.
Yeah. So
and I don't know, from the looks of this, it doesn't have a strong correlation with your standing on the table.
So I wonder, you were a big advocate of the 5 subs, but if teams are not using it, do we even need it?
I actually want to say that I think we should take it away so that you never put an Excel spreadsheet on the show ever again.
Bro, we got to get to the bottom of this.
I think it's too early to tell. It's new.